Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. Michael DiStefano, also known as Al's brother, here with us this afternoon. We're going to have picks in about an hour. Luke Wilson will join us from the Super Bowl. Mike Johnson coming up here in a moment.
You remember when Mike Johnson walked in from the Sports Center set and he first laid eyes on Al's brother and he had his earphones in?
Yeah.
He had Johnny's earbuds in his ears.
That was that was your introduction to the world.
Yeah.
You'd never been on the show really before or anything.
I was just hid in the hole. There was no viz of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came in to do a Jerry's because, I don't know, Johnny was out doing a hit or something, and he came in. I remember it vividly, too. Like, I was kind of in a bind. No one gave me any cans or nothing, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I got to be able to hear. It's Jerry's, right? Like, you got to hear what So I just chucked them in my ears and didn't think twice about it. And then, Johnny comes in. He's like, are those mine?
Yeah, they were his.
Yes, they are.
Oh, he was very happy to see you and meet you.
Did he just say after keep them? Don't worry about it?
Yeah, he threw them in the garbage. He tossed those things in the garbage. They got incinerated.
I mean, it is kind of tough. Like the earlobe things, like you don't really want anyone else using those. You know what I mean? Like I kind of get where he's going with that. Where
I don't blame the guy at all for that.
Yeah, it's all good. But that was your introduction to the world, basically, into this show. We had you on, like you said before, kind of voiceover and stuff. But Johnny's coming up here in a moment, and we'll see what he says about that Leaf game last night. He was calling, and I guess. There's was it Dregs last night saying Brayden Schenn is a guy that could be available all of a sudden, and maybe St. Louis is looking to make some moves, and maybe Jordan Kyrou could be available, and I don't know. Like St. Louis, they kind of lost the plot. Like it's Vancouver and Calgary, and St. Louis has kind of dropped off a little bit, and they still have potential to get in, but they've just been a middling team now for a couple of years.
Which makes you wonder why. When Army was looking at Jimmy Montz, he was like, when I'm hungry, I want a steak dinner, I eat.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, for what? Why were you so hungry with that guy available when you guys are kind of – they are what they are. Like they've proven that they won't all of a sudden just climbing up and being a contender. So, I don't know. I think that's a really weird place to be in pro sports because – where's it going to get you ultimately? Probably not very far.
Yeah,
you're going to either get in and get pumped or you're just going to miss and you miss out on lottery picks. But do you want to be brutal? Like, do you want to be in last place? You can do that, but it's not very fun. So you want to give your fans a little bit of excitement, but just as far as actually competing and being real deal, you're not. You're not that.
No, they're not. Like Utah has passed St. Louis now in terms of points, and they're 8 points out of the playoffs. Like, it's basically done. They played more games than anybody else, too. They played 55 games.
Yeah,
so,
when a team like Utah, with all due respect to Utah, they're not trying to sound like Pussycats.
Okay. Let me hear it.
No disrespect to
disrespect to Utah.
When they pass you, you're probably like,
maybe
it's not our year.
No, it's over. And there's
Johnny's got the numbers on passing teams and making it with it just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen. In St. Louis, there's a Raptor connection there. They both won in 2019. Both had never won before. Then both were competitive for a while. Both of their coaches left. Now they're just kind of at the bottom and trying to figure out exactly where you're going. And the Raptors, I guess, acknowledged that in the last year, like, we got to go in a different direction. Maybe that's what St. Louis is about to do. But Brayden Schenn is 33, still got a couple years left on his deal. He's got a no-trade clause, so Doug Armstrong, their GM, would have to convince him to go. But he's a compelling piece, man.
Oh,
he's a really good player.
Here.
He'd fit pretty well in Toronto.
Yeah, and the guy behind the bench knows him very well.
So this is the old who would say no? Like, what kind of package would the Leafs have to put together to get Brayden Schenn? And how far are you willing to go in order to acquire him? Because, again, I think he would check multiple boxes, and that is he's got term left on his deal. It's not a rental. I think he's got 2 years left at $6.5 million.
Because you don't even know, because everybody's fascinated, and it's big talk amongst us, right? Maple Leafs, but when other teams are looking at the Maple Leafs, like if you were St. Louis Overdrive, who would you be saying, yeah, I'd love to pluck that guy off that roster? It's not Pontus Holmberg. It's not Nick Robertson.
No.
It's probably not even Minton right now. So what is Overdrive St. Louis saying? Man, I'd love to pluck that.
Well, Cowan would be at the top of the list, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. You never know.
But
Yeah, and I also think you got to be reasonable in terms of exactly what the price is for Brayden Schenn, because he's a good player and he's a winner, and if he's your third line center, I think you're very happy with that. But he's not a guy that's going to put up like massive point production.
no.
But he brings a lot of intangibles. He brings toughness. He's obviously won a Stanley Cup. He meshes very well with your coach. There's a lot of value in that. He's got 11 goals on the season, 30 points in 55 games. Yeah, I think Easton Cowan picks, that's probably what you're talking about. And if you're going to move off a guy like that who's your best prospect, it can't be a rental. And that's what makes Braden Schenn unique here is it's not a rental. You're getting him for this year and 2 more, which...
The age worry you, though, at 33.
Yes, and it probably should. Yeah, it probably should. Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What do you make of Brayden Schenn and his possible fit in Toronto if it got to that point?
I mean, I think he'd be pretty good, let's be honest. All the concerns are valid. Normal, everyone would have them. His age, he's played a hard game. Where's his game going to go right now? But if you think that he's going to be playing behind Austin Matthews for the duration of his career or that contract in Toronto, he won't be tasked with those kind of things. Probably John Tavares will be around. They can interchange depending on how things are going. I think, if you're looking for 20 goals and 45 points, something like that, like as a third line center, that's something you could probably get behind. And I'm sure it would cost a lot because of his resume and his accomplishments. But as far as just fit, I was sitting there the last couple of days, Hazy, and with Marner returning to the lineup, and they were kind of shuffling the lines around, and McMahon playing well, and I was trying to sit in there with Masters Nation, and we were trying to figure out how to best optimize the Leafs lineup. Because if you put Nyes and Marner with Matthews, and you put Nylander and McMahon with Tavares, those are probably the 6 best forwards right now available to them. If you put them all in the same top 6, then you're left with a third line, and who's on the third line? In the playoffs, who's in your third line? And you're going to count on Yarncroc coming back because Max Domi's not probably ideally a third line kind of player. Is it going to be Robertson? Who's going to be the centerman? It's not Holmberg. You basically need almost the entire third line, depending what you think about Max Domi in that role, which was part of the reason why they put Domi on the first line yesterday, because if it worked the way it went yesterday, Domi's on the first line, Marner's on the second, McMahon's on the third, you get Yarncroc back. Now you're sort of just one player short, one third-line center, one Braden Schenn, one whatever, Yanni Gord, whoever it might be, and then you sort of have all your lines line up. And I think that's part of the discussion. If you're going to have a third line with Max Domi on it, you almost need 3 new players. It's an interesting dynamic. I think they're trying to maximize what they have and the talent available to them and not have that many needs. But certainly no matter which way you cut it, I think to optimize their lineup, they need a third-line center. And Max has tried to do it as best he could, not his preferred or best position. And I think if they got a Brock Nelson, a Charlie Coyle, a Brayden Schenn, whoever, it does change the complexion of the team pretty significantly.
What does it cost, though, Jody? We mentioned at the beginning of the show that we're sick of talking to Joe from the Bridge about his trade possibilities. It's nice to have you on. Braden Schenn, what would St. Louis say? If you give us that, you can have Braden Schenn.
I bet if you gave him a first-round pick.
That's it?
That's it.
I think a lot of people would sign up for that. But, sounds like they want a little bit more. Because Dreger was on the morning show today and saying it's going to take a lot to pry him out. If it's a first-round pick, I'm signing up for that all day if I'm Toronto.
Yeah, I don't know. The term on the contract, does that make him significantly more valuable? Or the fact that you're taking a contract off their books that they probably want to get rid of, does that sort of negate the value of the control? I don't know, first-round pick, and you can have a first-round pick, and whoever you choose is the third best prospect in this organization. So anyone but Cowan or Minton, take that guy. Or Nick Robertson, if you like. I don't just toss names around, but if you like Nick Robertson, if you think you have something there, first rounder and some other relatively significant piece not named Cowan or Minton? I don't think that's out of the question. I don't think that's a homerism Toronto look at things. Maybe a first and a second, or first and a third, whatever it is. Something like that, to me, would seem reasonable for a guy like Brayden Schenn, given how good he is, but also the fact that, he's got 3 more years at $6.5 million on a declining asset as far as just because of his age and everything else. I don't think that's out of the question for the Toronto Maple Leafs or any team in the league to kind of offer up a package like that.
Yeah, which that kind of sounds like the Ryan O'Reilly package. Like basically what they gave up to get him was like a first and another pick, maybe a first and a second, but he was expiring. So like it's an interesting question in terms of the value. Like, do the Leafs? I would think the Leafs would value a guy with term, but to your point,
it depends what the contract is, right? Like,
yeah,
you value term if it's a good value deal,
right?
You don't value Braden Schenn at $10 million with term. That's a terrible situation. So depends what you think of the 6.5, and it depends what you think of the cap.
Could they eat some of it? Then it gets then it starts getting spicy. Then you got to pay more for that. But that could be worth something for the Leafs. You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you look at him, and then you look, okay, well, he's maybe available now, but you look at, if you think Brock Nelson is going to be there, if the Islanders turn that direction, or Charlie Coyle or Pavel Zach, or, different goal players like that have term, then you can also take your pick. Ryan O'Reilly, maybe you can try to course Nashville to get him back. Maybe it's a bigger trade, O'Reilly and Luke Schenn. I think that would be, those would fit some pretty important holes right now. This is the thing they're exploring, and I think everyone is sort of just feeling each other out as to what the demand might be, and then what the players who would be getting traded if they have protection think about these things.
Johnny, I mean, you talked about Max Domi. Now he, doesn't really have a full fit on this roster. Are you convinced that the Leafs want to try and make it work with Domi? Because if you're bringing in these players, I mean, with the cap where it's at, where the Leafs are, money's got to go out somehow. Would that be a name that you would try and move around to try and open up that space?
Sure, AB, but I mean, I don't think Max Domi with 3 more years at just under $4 million, and what does he have? 3 goals?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be an incentivizing move. I mean, Max has had good moments. Max has been a good player, but the way he's played so far this year, I don't think adding him to a deal is going to make the deal more palatable to the team acquiring him. I don't think it goes down that road. I think, Max is going to be on the team, and it's on Max and the team to find a spot that gets him playing where he's a contributor.
Yeah, I think especially if you're talking about teams that are looking to tank or rebuild or shed money. Exactly. Domi does not exactly, he's not going to be a compelling piece there, but he's got to find a role here. They've invested in him, they've paid him. He's got to find a role, and I guess that's Berube's job as well to figure that out. But what's kind of incredible is the logjam now in the wings. I don't love the idea of Domi up the middle of the ice, especially come playoff time. But with Nyes and McMahon playing the way that they've been playing, it's really balanced out both wings. Obviously it's always been Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Marner, and clearly the right wing is still tilted in terms of supremacy and talent and production. But Nyes and McMahon are giving Berube options, and they're both scoring at a very, very solid rate. And they play a very meat and potatoes game that I think allows you to breathe a little bit easier than maybe we thought they would at the start of the year.
Yeah, and I think there is something to the idea of, horses for courses. I think both Nyes and McMahon play a style that works with what Craig Berube does. Maybe more than Max Domi plays a style. Max Domi very much a rush player and wants to create offensive chances in space. And those guys are more straight line players, as you mentioned, front net guys. And the one consideration I have, and I sort of try to articulate this during the game, it's hard to get out there quickly, but Bobby McMahon has it's just been an incredible story. I think yesterday his goal, I think I said it was his 30th goal in the last 76 games he's played. That's crazy for a guy that started that run on a day where he was supposed to be scratched, and he got a hat trick on just before Valentine's Day last year.
That's right.
And I almost wonder if he is so uniquely valuable on the third line. Obviously, he's playing better than whoever, Pacioretty or Domi, whoever else they might put in the top 6. But McMahon has a little bit of William Nylander in him. in that he doesn't need sort of other people to help him score. He doesn't need a whole system and infrastructure and support. He's a straight line, blazing speed, heavy shooting player. And on the third line, where you get the best matchups on the team, because you're not checking the other team's top guys, and the other team's top guys are not checking you, defense and otherwise. Like, he can do things with Holmberg in the middle and Robertson on the wing, who are not really facilitators. That's not what they do. And not that he's lost, but like, you can almost maximize your roster by not playing him with Tavares, even though he's clearly the sixth best forward on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like Phil Kessel in Pittsburgh, again, not the same kind of player, but the idea that when they won the Cup, he was a third-line winger, right, with Carl Hagelin.
Yep.
And I think like that kind of idea where he's so good in that third-line role that you can put a lesser player in the second line because McMahon and his talents and the way they sort of work in the third line, I again, trying to optimize what they have, it seems to make right now more sense. And if you could ever get a Schenn or a quality centerman to play in the third line, then you put McMahon and that guy as a duo on the third line, and the team looks really pretty good down the middle. And your fourth line could be, Lorentz and Camp and whoever, Yarncroker, like really reliable guys. And then, you're onto something. I think you sort of like how that looks.
Yeah, and these are all the conversations we're going to have between now and March 7th. Mm-hmm. And, this road trip, it's amazing how they're streaking right now, Johnny. Like 3 wins, 3 losses. 3 wins, 3 losses. Like, it's just, they're 6-6, I believe, in the last 12. But I think the most significant probably footnote of this trip is that Stolarz returned last night and played as well as he did. And he looked really comfortable. He was tested. He was up for it. What did you see in his game that gives you comfort that they waited long enough, he's ready to go? And how would you handle tomorrow night? Would you go back to him? Would you go to Joseph Woll? What would you do in Vancouver tomorrow?
No. You got to go to Woll. Okay, first off, he was awesome. And it was funny being around the team and sort of talking to the coach and talking to Stolarz and stuff. And, he's been cleared physically for 10 days. But it's not like, a winger. We could go in rusty, not feeling quite right, not being quite sharp, and we're not going to hurt our team, right? Like, I can get through a game and not be very good, but not be absolutely brutal and cost myself a team. And Stolarz
get it in, get it out, couple one-timers on the PP, punch a guy in the face, let everyone know you're interested.
Yeah, that's it. But for him, he's like, I'm not seeing it right. I'm not feeling it right. Even though he was healthy, he's like, I don't feel good. I don't feel confident. And I guess their patience was, justified in that he wanted to make sure he was sharp. And he was really, really sharp. I mean, the first couple of shots, he looked a little lost. Like, the first one hit him, he didn't know where it went. The second one hit a post. But after that, he was locked right in. And we showed some clips in the game where he was moving on that knee, explosive, hard, physical kind of goaltending. And he had no problem. So brilliant that he's back. Brilliant for him that he's back before the break, because now he doesn't have to think about what I'm going to be like coming out of the break. He knows he's good. But I don't think there's any way he plays tomorrow. Like, no way at all. It's got to be Woll, who's played well. He's sharper. Let Stolarz enjoy his first game back and his body to recover. And Woll will get tomorrow. And then I think they might go almost like Boston Bruins style. Like, they might almost rotate. They split the remaining stretch, and whoever plays better, I guess, will be the starter come playoff time. But I would expect them basically to play each half of the remaining games, which is a great luxury for Toronto to have.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, it looks like Crosby won't play tonight, though, against the Rangers. The first game that he's going to miss since 2022. It's been a recurring theme for you to play Jerry's, a little mini Jerry's on the show the last couple of weeks. What are your Jerry's percentages he's going to be playing for Team Canada next week at the Four Nations? And if not, who do you think they tab as his replacement?
So I'm going to say mini Jerry's real quick without knowing how Sid's doing. I'm saying 50-50. Right down the middle.
Not allowed. It's a Hayes move.
It's a
Noodles move, and I don't approve.
Okay, I'll go 51-49. He does not play.
All right. I
think it's slightly more likely he doesn't play. Listen, I think any player who is not healthy enough to play in their last game is not healthy enough to play in that tournament. Whether it's Quinn Hughes or Sidney Crosby or had it been Mitch Marner or whatever. If you can't play on Friday or Saturday night, then you can't be in practice Monday unless it's a flu, unless it's like an illness, unless it's like it's a sickness, not an injury. And if Sid, he's a competitor. He doesn't want to ever miss games. He certainly doesn't want to miss this tournament. He wants to represent Canada. He wants to play in the Olympics one more time, I'm sure. He was tapped to be the captain. Like he's a really important player for that team. So if he doesn't play this weekend, then I don't think he plays. Although I saw clips of him passing the puck. He didn't shoot it, but he was skating, passing it crisply. So I don't know exactly what's going on with him. But I'm saying, yeah, if he doesn't play, then he won't play in the Four Nations. As far as who gets picked to replace him, is it Zach Hyman or Mark Scheifele? You guys one of those two guys?
Probably.
Depending on what John Cooper, how he envisions the lineup. Like, the thing about this tournament, there's only, 2 days of practice and 3 games, maybe 4. So there's no time for experimentation. Cooper has in his mind what the line's going to look like, and they're probably going to look like that most of the tournament because there's not enough time to fiddle with it. So do you take Hyman with the built-in chemistry, and does that shuffle what you anticipated being your first line with McDavid? Or, you can't deny how Mark Scheifele's played this year. He's been incredible.
Yep.
He's just absolutely so good. Do you go in that direction? Probably one of those two guys, I guess, would be my hunch.
Yeah, and it would suck for Sid because really, you look at where Pittsburgh is right now, like the rest of the way, you wonder how much he's going to play. Like, we don't even know what the injury is, and we don't know what the projection is in terms of how much time he could miss. And without knowing all that, it's really difficult to compare and contrast. But I do, like, we had Chris Pronger on earlier this week, and Prongs was talking about Steve Yzerman in 2002 and what he was playing through just to get ready to play in the Olympic Games. And I just think if this was the Olympics, we'd be like, Sid's going. Sid will find a way to get there. You can glue him together. But for the Four Nations, he's not going to do it. And it's just, it'll be one more bullet of like, what is this tournament going to be worth in terms of the conversation afterwards, right? In terms of legacy building. And I think it's going to be a fun tournament. I'm curious what it's going to look like. I'm preparing for this to be better than whatever the All-Star weekend was ever going to be. Yeah. But generally speaking, when you get to big moments like this and big platforms, like we live in a media world now where everything's about legacy building, everything's about chasing the GOAT. Like, if Canada wins, what is that worth in your opinion, Johnny? Or if the Americans win or whatever, for individual players, the best players. But what's it worth for McDavid's resume? What's it worth for Matthews'
Does that
resume?
pop up on the plaque?
Yeah, is it a Hall of Fame? Is it a mention in the Hall of Fame speech?
100% it is.
You think it
100%.
is? Okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
Because there's been nothing else available in its place. It's not like, he won a World Cup. Yeah, but how do you do in the Olympics? There's been no Olympics, right? Like, there hasn't been an alternative, so this is all they got. And it's best on best in whatever the format, whatever the teams, whoever's in it. I think it's probably more important for North American players than winning a world championship. Right?
Yeah, I would say
probably
so.
Not for Europeans, but for a North American player, would it be equivalent of like sort of world junior success? Something like that. I don't think it's nothing until we get into a bigger rhythm of World Cups, Olympics, World Cup, Olympics. And then I think once we get in that rhythm and they expand the format, which I think they're going to announce like next week at this tournament, when you get to 8 teams or whatever it is, then it becomes another thing that the top players want to have accomplished and want to have won. It's not the be-all, end-all. We all understand it's a bit quirky, it's a bit new, but I think once they get maybe you guys are too young. I mean this seriously. But remember the 96 World Cup? You guys would have been, early teens maybe. And I don't remember, I was in college when that happened. I went to watch the 87 Canada Cup, which was one of the all-time greats. I went to watch the 91 Canada Cup where Eric Lindros was 17 and putting Noel Samuelson through the glass at Maple Leaf Gardens. I don't remember the 96 World Cup having the sort of buzz that the Canada Cups had. And yet, now in the folklore of hockey, that tournament has been huge for American hockey, for the American guys who won it, for putting USA hockey on the map, for Brett Hull and all those guys, the Tkachuks and Guerins, that Modano, that generation. That turned into a massive moment historically for those players and the game. I'm not saying this Four Nations is going to be like that, but if it plays out the way it could, then I think we will be talking about it. And if it plays out the way it might as well, then we will be like, that wasn't what we wanted it to be. I think it really will depend on the quality of the game and sort of the emotional commitment of the guys playing it. If they play like it's Game 7, then we'll think it's really important. If they play like it's not, then we won't.
Yeah, the players will determine it. It's just like the All-Star game. You want the All-Star game to matter, you got to try. Like, you got to put that effort forth, and it's going to be very easy to pick up, like, if they care or not. Like, we're going to know that immediately.
Dangerous to compare it to the All-Star game because it's going to be so much better. Like,
of course it will be.
In any capacity, it'll be remotely like the All-Star game. Like, a guy won't back check or he won't block a shot. Like, that's not it at all. Like, they're going to be fully invested trying to win when they're out there.
I think that's likely the case, but it's on the perimeters where, like, you're going, like, if you don't block the shot, if there's, if you don't finish the check, if you don't back check, like,
who wants to be that guy though, Brian? Like, embarrass themselves?
I don't know, man. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen. But let's say the third game of the tournament where both teams are out of it. You think they're going all out in that game? I don't know.
Might be different.
I
want to know, does Sam Bennett sneaky elbow Makachuk in the head?
That's what I'm saying.
Makachuk go low on Barkov. Does like this? Like, I'm serious. Like, this is the difference. Like, when they're teammates today, and they're going to be teammates 3 days after they're done. But in those moments, are they willing to put their club allegiances not only like on the back burner, but like at risk? Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take a run at you in a very physical, potentially dirty way, because this is what I need to do to win this game, not considering what that might mean. Will Mitch Marner low bridge Austin Matthews if that's what it takes to win a game? I don't, and we chuckle, but like, what if he did? And would you be like, yes, or would you like, no? This is the dilemma more than anything, especially when it happens this time of the year as opposed to in August, where there's such a long runway before the playoffs start that you can kind of put any impact in this tournament in the back burner because it won't probably impact the playoffs.
Well, I think you hit on something important, like referencing the 96 World Cup. The reason I don't think it means as much up here is because Canada didn't win it. The Americans won it. So I
people
think
talk like Canada won that thing. They didn't.
They did
Everyone
not
was
win.
like, it was so awesome. The hockey was crazy.
Yeah.
They lost to the U.S.
They lost, and that was the great generation of American players. Mm-hmm. And I think if that's going to be applicable here, I think what I would take out of your argument is only the Americans are really going to use this as a true accomplishment. Where if they win it, Americans will be loud. Hockey fans in the States will be loud. I think if Canada wins it, it'll be awesome. But you better win the Olympics,
right?
You've won 1 million Canada Cups. You win the Olympics every single year. You win. That I do think that is likely the reaction in the States. It's huge. If Canada wins, it's okay. That's great. Like, cool tournament, but not going to be something compared to anything else we've done on the international stage, where the Americans just don't have the same reference points. They have the World Cup in '96 and nothing else. In terms of
in '80,
I guess '80. You're right. That one's a very significant one, of course, but also different context. Amateurs and we're talking best on best. Never won a Canada Cup. Never won gold at the Olympics. I
think you're absolutely right. The only caveat to that is that the best players in Canada, who are the 3 best players in Canada,
McDavid, McKinnon,
Makar. None of them have won anything for Canada before. I'm best on best.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, like, I get, like, society speaking, we're like, yeah, that's good. We won. We're once again the best. Like, we knew we were. Don't worry about those World Juniors, whatever. But like, the big one's really next year. But for those players, I do think we're 0 for 1 against USA when it matters most, right? They don't have a track record. We can claim it as a country, but the players playing this can't claim anything because they've been robbed of the opportunity because of all the situations that we know about.
Yeah.
So I do think it will resonate more heavily, positive or negative, for the players involved because it's their first time for so many of them.
All right, Johnny. Enjoy the Super Bowl on Sunday, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Have you made your picks yet? Hey,
no, we're doing our picks in half an hour.
Yep.
Al's brother and I are on the clock in half an hour.
You got, Johnny?
You got to pick
I got
one way or the
Eagles
other?
plus 1.5. I think the line play is the difference. Saquon gets it done.
I kind of agree. I lean Eagles myself, but that's not our pick. They're going to be picking the spread. Owen Wilson will be picking the spread. Al's brother and I are going to be on the total. For 2 points apiece. Very important detail.
Okay.
2 points apiece.
I'll tune in at 6 to figure it all out.
Please do.
I will.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right, boys.
Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, and get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. Okay. Yeah, Four Nations, man. Rapidly approaching, too, right? You got Super Bowl, Four Nations coming up. We had a hole-in-one on.
Johnny thinks Sid's playing.
It doesn't sound like it. And listen, something's going on there. Like, if he's not playing and he's not shooting the puck or anything, like he's got a real injury.
Well, it's funny because we had this conversation here in this market with Matthews, and now now that Marner's come back, that conversation's gone. But it was like, if he's not playing, like there's no way he's playing for Canada. I wonder if that conversation's a little different in Pittsburgh because they're just not competitive. Where let Sid do what he's got to do. If he's got to get healthy, like if he needs to miss a game to get healthy for Canada, for the Four Nations, like maybe they're more okay with that because they're not going anywhere.
I think there's validity to that. I also, listen, Pittsburgh's probably in a position where they should be tanking. It's like maybe keeping Sid out of the lineup is actually a smart play because they're 8 points out of the playoffs. It's over. Pittsburgh, it's done. It's over. And it actually may be smart to be like, stay out of this and actually load management so you can possibly play for Canada. I don't think Sid's wired that way, but he may be willing to buy into that as well. Like, I'm going to take a night off here so I can play next week.
They're closer to the basement of the East than a wild card spot right now.
Yeah. They're only 4 points up on Buffalo.
Yeah. Hey, 4 in a row.
That's always the shrapnel.
4 in a row for the Sabres,
where Buffalo is. Yeah, Buffalo's on fire. Yeah.
I just don't understand, like, I get it. He wanted to stay there and try to win one more cup, but they're going to miss again. And, like, how does he say, yeah, we'll just go get him next year? You're going to be worse next year.
That's the whole thing. They're getting worse every single year.
Yeah.
Like, every year.
I don't want to see him go down like that. It'll be just dreadful.
Jump on the bandwagon, dude. I said this last November or whatever. I was like, get him out. Like, get him out. And it sucks.
Yes.
But
dude, get him out. As soon as they started losing in the first round.
Yeah.
Like, they won back-to-back cups, and then they got pumped in the first round a couple times. That's same thing in Chicago, same thing in Pitt. That's when it's the dream's over, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And
unless you can incorporate some kind of Dallas where they have younger players that are coming up, and Crosby and Malkin and Letang are like secondary guys. But they don't have that.
Washington's kind of rebuilt on the fly a little bit.
Bingo.
Here. Like they've done well.
Bingo.
But it's not that they just had guys come. I mean, they did have, I guess, Dylan Strome was a nice pickup a couple of years ago. That's flourishing. But that Alexi Protas kid, Connor McMichael's played really well. But they also went and signed and traded for the right guys. Like they brought in a Jacob Chychrun.
Chychrun scored again
Logan
last
Thompson's
night.
been unbelievable in net for them. Charlie Lindgren they brought in a year ago.
Great managerial work, great coaching work.
Yeah.
End of story. Like just
absolutely
all around great executive work and behind the bench with those guys.
See what Kyle's got in him.
Yeah,
See what he's got on Pitt.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, man. It's not going to be easy, and ultimately, it's Sid's call. He re-signed, full no move, no trade. Nothing's going to happen until he decides I don't want to do this anymore, and who knows if he ever will. We have a hole-in-one at the Waste Management on 16. 16.
Dunked it.
Well, we got to try to play that if we can, and we'll track what's going on out there. And, again, get to our picks with Luke in about a half an hour. Dear Hazy B in about an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
We're talking about the intensity of the upcoming Four Nations. There was a documentary on one of the Dream Teams with Kobe and LeBron, and he was like, the first play of the game, he's like, set this play up, and I'm going to absolutely pile drive Pau Gasol into the ground. And everyone was like, really? You want to do that? He was like, yeah, let's run it. And he did it just to show him. He's like, I'm not screwing around here. It was his teammate.
Yeah. Won multiple titles, man.
Yeah.
This is what the 08 Redeem team. Is that what that was?
Whatever
Would have been
team
after
it
that
was.
because Powell got there. That was probably in 2012, maybe.
2012?
Because Powell got traded there in 08, I think, to the Lakers.
But that was him saying, that's what I think of this event, and I'm not screwing around.
I love that mentality, and that ultimately does end up happening, right? It's not that you
That does get awkward when you get back, but hey.
Someone's going to win, and you're all
that's it.
competitive, and that you don't want to see guys get hurt or anything silly like that, but that's it. If Sam Bennett can line up Matthew Tkachuk, you got to throw the hit. If you're in it to win it, you're throwing the hit. And Tkachuk's probably going to do the same thing to you, using those two as an example. Melody Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. Al's brother's going to have a list for us momentarily. We do have a hole-in-one at 16 at the Waste Management. Emiliano Grillo with a dunk and a great reaction too, right?
Yeah.
Like any hole-in-one on tour is always going to be a great reaction, but this guy goes nuts. It's always a little bit awkward, like the playing partner. Is he into it? Is he willing to go crazy with you? But it did happen. They both did the hug in the air. The caddies are going nuts. The weather's beautiful. It just looks amazing.
Oh, it's
out there.
great.
Dude, there's only one hole-in-one that will top any one that ever happens on that hole.
Where's that?
It's Tiger Woods at that hole.
Oh, yeah.
Right when he first started out on tour, he played this event, and he hits the ball, and the announcer goes, if he makes this place is going to go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes it, and they were throwing toilet paper like he was Tiger Woods was raising the roof. It was insane.
It was amazing. Did he win that tournament? Was that his first win on tour?
No, his first win on tour was in Milwaukee. No, sorry. His first start was in Milwaukee.
Okay.
I think his first win might have been in Vegas.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember that hole-in-one. That was a famous one in 96, I guess, and that was early in his career.
Yeah.
And, they didn't even have the stadium set up like they do now. Like
But
Tiger
that's what I don't
basically established
understand.
that.
Like, Tiger never plays. Can he not just sneak out to the Waste Management and, crank that tournament way up by playing one time?
Well, he's playing next week, right? He committed to the Genesis.
Yeah.
It is his tournament. He does host it, but he is playing. He'll be playing, and it's an elevated event. No cut, I don't think. Or does Tiger put his top 70 make it, and there's 10 guys that will get cut?
Are we done?
That'll be interesting because he's always hated the no cuts.
Right, and it's Torrey Pines, though. He's always loved that course.
Are we done hyping it? Maybe he can make a comeback. Or is that going to be
I don't
conversation next week?
I think he deserves the respect of the attention and the hype of him playing. But look at who he's going up against. Scheffler's on fire today. He's back in the hunt. He's T8.
Dude, he's Tiger
Today.
Woods, man.
Yeah.
He
2 years.
was looking like he was going to miss the cut and ended up the round yesterday -2. I swear he's the only guy in the world that could have pulled a -2 out of that.
Yeah. Did he eagle that out of the bunker yesterday? I think it was coming down the stretch.
He drilled it home from the bunker, and then on 15, which is a gargantuan hole for mere mortals, he had driver 4-iron to 10 feet and drills an eagle. It's then he's 1 under, and then he clips away one more, and it's that's just how good he is, man. Anyone else, the guy he played with did it. Max Homa, he finished up 5 over.
That's right. Homa's in a bad place right now.
Shoot, he is.
Bad place. But there's a lot of Canadian flags up there, too. Adam Hadwin's 8 under. He had a great day today. Nick Taylor's T20 at 5 under. On the tournament, he's 4 under today. Adam Svensson, 7 under, and I think he's through his round. So there's a lot of Canadian content down there. It's going to be a great, great weekend.
Love it.
To see what happens. And, yeah, Scotty Scheffler's out there doing his thing. All right, we'll come back. Al's brother, you have a power ranking of the 7 Canadian teams based on who you think can win the Stanley Cup.
Yes, most to least likely to win the Stanley Cup
Give it
this
to me.
season.
I love
Give
it.
to me.
This is not who's playing the best as of today.
No.
This is a projection for who can win the Stanley Cup. We're going to come back, and Al's brother's going old school. We haven't done this in quite some time. An Al's brother Canadian team power ranking. We'll get to that. Luke's coming up. Picks coming up in 20 minutes. Dear Hazy B in 45. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, it's time for you to tell us where Al's brother's been hiding this week. Call us right now at 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. The first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see Leafs Sharks March 3rd. Where have you been all week, Alice, brother?
I was down at St. Lawrence Market.
St. Lawrence Market.
I don't think I've ever been there. I'm not going to
No?
lie to you.
It's a good spot. It's a good spot.
I've been to one. I'm not like my wife's a downtown person. I've been to a Kensington Market.
Yeah.
Never St. Lawrence Market.
You got to get there, man. It's one of the coolest places in Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, as someone who appreciates a good board or two, you can get yourself set up there. They got tons of meats, cheeses, olives.
The best.
Well,
It's a
Hayes,
good
if
bread.
that show we did down there that one time, if you consider that to be the St. Lawrence Market, then I have been there. But that's the...
Did we do a show at St. Lawrence Market? When did we do that?
Dude, it was a long time ago, man. We did a show down there.
Well,
I
it's a
don't
building.
remember
It's
that.
like inside that big building, right?
Yeah.
They got those female bacon
Oh,
standees.
they got a
You
great
had
like
those?
chicken parms down there. They got great sandwiches. It's
It's
a
a
phenomenal
good
spot.
spot.
Phenomenal.
Good
You got to
spot.
get down there. Al's brother, you're taking a break now for the next 2 weeks, but you'll be back out again soon with more Leaf tickets. Brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. All right, 7 Canadian teams. How are we ranking these based on who can win the Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
All right, take us, I guess, from 7 down to 1.
Okay,
Al's
so
brother, take it away.
we'll start off, obviously, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Montreal Canadiens to come in at number 7. I mean, they had their nice little run around Christmas time. Good story. Laine came back. He was scoring all the time. That's since dried up. Really, ever since the 7-3 drubbing to Toronto, it's gone downhill from there. They're 3-7 since. They're allowing 4.1 goals per game. It's not a good situation now, and they're going to start moving some pieces. They got no shot.
It's over. They're not winning the Stanley Cup. No chance.
Shot to win
It's
a
done.
Stanley Cup.
Over.
Next on my list, I have the Calgary Flames coming in at number 6. And they've been a good story. The fact that they're in a playoff race kind of surprises me compared to where I thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I still don't see them as a team that's ready to compete for a Stanley Cup that might sneak into a playoff spot. I like the moves they made last week, bringing in Frost and Farabee, adding a little bit more depth to their team. But ultimately, I'm just not sold that they're going to be able to compete with the Vegases and Colorado.
No arguments here. Calgary at 6. Who do you have at 5?
The Ottawa Senators coming in at number 5. Yep,
I'm offended by that. I'm offended.
You believe the Ottawa Senators can win a Stanley Cup?
Dude, I just think they're in a positive cycle right now, and you're actually like taking a massive sky dump on it, and I don't appreciate it.
Linus Ullmark, our favorite, is back and feeling pretty good, right? Looks okay.
That's the problem, I think, in Ottawa, is they rely way too much on goaltending, because when they don't get it, they don't win any games.
Well,
They're
that applies
30th
to a lot of teams.
They're
but
30th in the league in scoring at 5-on-5. 30th in the NHL.
All right,
it's not a good recipe for success.
All right, you got Ottawa at 5.
I got
Surely
Ottawa at
you
5.
have. Who do you have at 4? Tell us who you have at 4.
The Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 4.
You have them ahead of Ottawa, which
do.
is surprising considering how tumultuous their season has been.
But they moved on from the situation, right? JT Miller's gone. I think you could get addition by subtraction. Hopefully, you get Elias Pettersson back into the fold.
Yeah.
I think it's a team that's been underachieving. They made it to the second round, took Edmonton to 7 games last year with Artur Shilovs as their goaltender.
Well, have you told Demko that he's supposed to be playing better recently? Has Elias Pettersson actually got the message?
I'm glad you asked about Thatcher Demko. He's figured something out the last couple of weeks here. Last 4 games, .952 save percentage and a shutout in his last 4 games. He's starting to come alive.
They won 2-1 last night, I think, in overtime.
2-1 last night against the Sharks. That's a big reason for why I believe they have a chance to at least be contenders. I don't think they're necessarily in cup contention.
Okay.
But I think that they'll be contenders.
Vancouver at 4. Who do you have at 3? This is where it gets spicy.
This is where it gets spicy, but I've got the Toronto Maple Leafs coming in at number 3.
Okay.
I think the Leafs come in at number 3. And it may be one of those, I got to see it to believe it, but look, this team hasn't had playoff success. So how can I sit here and say, yep, this is going to be the year they do it? The goaltending's been great. Stolarz came back last night, picked up right where he left off. Joseph Woll's played well. The defense is much better. I think when you look at the team right now on February, I would say the 7th, it's maybe one of the best Leafs teams we've had at this point. We'll see what happens at the deadline, but I got them at number 3 right now because the 2 I just have more belief in.
Okay, so let's get to number 2 then. Who do you have, Winnipeg or Edmonton?
The Winnipeg Jets. I got at number 2.
The best team in the league this year at number 2.
Best team in the league, but similar to Toronto, they fade in the playoffs.
Yes, they do.
They fade in the playoffs. I mean, you look at it, Connor Hellebuyck has been arguably the best goaltender on the planet the last 2-3 years. But then you get to the playoffs, his last 2 seasons, 2-8 with an .875 save percentage. I need to see it to believe it. Every year we buy in, Winnipeg's got the roster, top to bottom, and they flame out in the playoffs. So
they
until
don't deserve
I see
many more props than the Leafs.
No, they're no different than the Leafs.
They're the Western Leafs.
No different than the Leafs.
Which leaves Connor McDavid's Edmonton Oilers up in the top spot. And I truly believe this is a team that was 1 game away from winning a Stanley Cup a year ago. That little taste they got in their mouth, I think that is going to become more rabid and rabid as we get closer to April. Yep. Those two, Leon, Connor, they're going to absolutely go beast mode come playoff time. I think they're going to get back to a Stanley Cup. And just like Sid did years ago when he lost in his first
Cup final?
out to the Cup final, came back the next year, figured out this is what didn't work, this is what we have to do, went ahead, won the following season.
So you're saying Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup. That's your call right now. Okay. Yeah, I can't argue with Edmonton being at 1. They're spreading the wealth, too. You look up the middle of the ice. It's McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Henrique. That's their 1 through 4. And, defensively, Darnell Nurse has been better this year. There's always question marks about Skinner, always going to be. But I think that's reasonable. I might put Ottawa ahead of Vancouver just because it feels like there's dark clouds in Vancouver right now. But other than that, I think you probably hit it. Al's brother, good list. All right. There it is. Al's Brothers power rankings for Canadian teams most likely to win the Stanley Cup. Final hour for the week coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.